through His grace, this program is possible. Pujya Swamiji, Shri Jayadabhai Shukla, friends and devotees of the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir and the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, bid you a warm welcome once again to the second day of the talk. We will begin by just asking Shri Jayadabhai to lead us into a small prayer chant that we can all accompany him in singing. Thereafter, we will give you further directions on what will be taking place. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Shri Jayadabhai.
Namaste Lakshmi Narayan Bhagavan ki jai. You all will be chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you, Jayadabhai. The Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, besides propagating the message of Vedanta, the message of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Vivekananda, also undertakes a lot of humanitarian work, which is part of our Dharma. Since Swamiji is part of the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, he is the president, it is appropriate that we just also highlight some of the activities of the ashram. So we'd like to call upon Advocate Kessi Naidu, Senior Counsel, who is an official and trustee of the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, to please come in to give us a brief outline of all the work, the good work that the ashram does. Advocate.
Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. My sincere prayers and salutations to the presiding deity, Shree Swami, Sri Lakshmi Narayan, Revered Swami Saradaprabhanandaji Maharaj, respected officials of the Sri Lakshmi Narayan Mandir, the esteemed trustees of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society Trust, respected elders, sisters and brothers, Om Namo Narayana. I'm grateful for the invitation extended by the organizers of this function held on this momentous occasion to share with you the activities of the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, Phoenix. The Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, Phoenix, is a branch of the worldwide Ramakrishna Mission with its headquarters in Belur Math, Kolkata, India. The center, located in Phoenix, north of Durban, together with its subsidiaries, namely the Johannesburg Sub-Center and the Ramakrishna Clinic of South Africa, Phoenix, has been involved in various spiritual and welfare projects in our country for approximately 8 decades. For the sake of brevity, I shall give a truncated account of these projects. Regular prayer services are held at our center on Sunday mornings. Hindu festivals such as Sri Ram Navami, Krishna Ashtami, Navaratri, Diwali, and others, and the birth anniversaries of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda, and other spiritual luminaries are celebrated annually. Vedanta classes are conducted on an ongoing basis. Revered Swami Saradaprabhananda conducted classes on Wednesdays and Fridays between 7:15 a.m. to 8 a.m. on various Hindu texts. Swamiji is presently conducting classes at the Swami Vivekananda Study Circle on Saturdays between 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. The value-based children's education programs conducted by a team of 23 teachers have been structured for the all-round spiritual and cultural development of almost 160 children. The value-based education programs conducted by a team of 23 teachers have been structured for the all-round spiritual and cultural development of almost 160 children. The Ramakrishna Open School was implemented during the 2020 suspension of children's classes caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Value-based material is made available every fortnight to children by means of one-page worksheets sent via WhatsApp to their parents or elders in their homes to share with the children. Over 1,240 children are presently registered for this program. It's a delightfully effective program. The nutrition program. The families on these various programs are provided with grocery hampers, vegetables, and necessary household items on a monthly basis. An average of 250 hampers are prepared and distributed monthly to sustain an average family of 4 people for a full month. Other regular programs include the provision of LP gas refills for 15 families without electricity on a monthly basis, and the provision of a liter of milk and a loaf of bread on an average of 3 times per week. The center also introduced the Surya Breakfast Packs project in 2020 for those children who were used to getting their first meal of the day at school, but were left hungry due to the disruptions in schooling caused by natural disasters and the COVID-19 during that period. Each box contains 7 sachets of nutrient-fortified cereals, noodles, biscuits, and other snacks. 800 packs are distributed every month. During 2021, a total of 9,579 such packs, that is 67,053 sachets of cereal, were distributed. Following the week-long spate of riots, looting, and arson in our country, which commenced on the 12th of July 2021, the center distributed 41 tons of groceries, vegetables, and nutrient-fortified breakfast cereals to a total of 1,500 families between July and August last year. Between April and June 2022, in the aftermath of the floods in KwaZulu-Natal, which had left many families in a state of devastation and hopelessness, the center undertook the following projects. Through its team of 140 volunteers, it distributed 9,420 liters of bottled drinking water, 1,100 freshly cooked meals, 100 food hampers, 200 blankets, 5,000 adult diapers for physically challenged patients, 5,000 paper plates and 5,000 paper cups to those families which had been seriously affected by the floods. A total of 22,500 liters rainwater harvesting tanks were installed at the homes of families and a school affected by erratic water supply and damage caused by the floods. The Ramakrishna Legal Aid Clinic provides free legal services and assistance through its 14 attorneys and advocates to disadvantaged persons from the Phoenix and surrounding areas. The center's volunteer workers regularly visit homes in the Phoenix area to distribute value-based literature. A total of 9,876 Ramakrishna Vivekananda literature packs and 4,000 calendars promoting yoga were distributed to homes in 2021. Regular veterinary visits are undertaken to ascertain the health, conditions, and needs of the pets in indigent families. Medicine and food are provided for pets, And during 2021, 12 surgical operations were performed and 20 vaccines for infectious diseases were administered. As part of the center's ongoing agricultural work, seed packs, seedlings, saplings, fertilizers, compost, gardening tools, and agricultural accessories were donated to poor families and other welfare organizations which had developed kitchen gardens, and this program still continues. The center is maintaining 120 kitchen gardens in the Phoenix area. Skills development. The center encourages skills development so that families are able to progress and become self-sufficient. Provisions and other supportive means were provided to 17 beneficiaries to boost their home-based businesses. 16 youth are receiving driving lessons, paid for by the center. A skills teacher was engaged to train women and youth in tailoring in rural areas. 40 men and women are trained annually. Medical services. The medical wing of the center, namely the Ramakrishna Clinic of South Africa, Phoenix, which has its building and facilities on the center's premises in Phoenix, provides specialist and super specialist medical, dental, and surgical services free of charge to poor patients at its facilities in Phoenix, as well as in state hospitals and medical camps. A total of 23,155 consultations were conducted in 2021. The spiritual and social welfare services undertaken by the center, as I have described, are being undertaken in accordance with the vision of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. Om Namo Narayana.
Thank you very much, Advocate Naidu. No doubt that there's much more that takes place that time does not permit, but at least thank you very much for highlighting some of the key activities. We'd like to now ask Kiran Bhai to lead us into a bhajan or kirtan, and at 10:30 promptly, we would request Swamiji to come forward for delivering his discourse.
संत परम हितकारी जगत मोहे संत परम हितकारी संत परम हितकारी जगत माही संत परम हितकारी प्रभु पद प्रगट करावत प्रीते भरम मिटावत भारी परम कृपालु सकल जीवन पर हरि संग सब दुख कर जगत माहि संत परम हितकारी। त्रिगुणातीत फिरत तन त्यागी, त्रिगुणातीत फिरत तन त्यागी, रीत जगत से न्यारी। संत परम हितकारी, जगत मोहे संत परम हितकारी। ब्रह्मानंद संतन की सोबत, मिलत है प्रगट मुरारी। मिलत है प्रगट मुरारी, जगत माहि संत परम हितकारी। जगत माहि संत परम हितकारी।
Thank you very much, Kiran Bhai. No doubt we will have the great fortune and pleasure to hear Kiran Bhai a bit later. To now commence with proceedings, I'd like to please call upon Shri Jaidev Bhai to come and do the tilak for Swamiji. All the introductions have taken place, so there is no need for me to say too much more, and rather to hand over to Swamiji.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatye Namaha. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramanandam Madhavam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. My humble obeisance to the Lord who is present here as Lakshmi Narayana, and to all the other worshipful deities here, Panditji, and the officials and members of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society, as well as the Sri Lakshmi Narayan Temple. In the course of these discourses, we are looking at the concept of Dharma, and yesterday we looked at crime in the Ramayana. Today we are looking at another topic which is also important from the second great Indian epic, that is the Mahabharata, and the topic is Mahabharata, Adharma causes fear, insecurity, and loss. The Mahabharata is a colossus amongst epics. By the sheer size of its composition, being larger than the combined strength of the Greek epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, it is a multi-dimensional canvas projecting a whole civilization. The great legal luminary and expert on Indian culture, Dr. Kanayalal Munshi wrote in his foreword to Kamala Subramaniam's abridged English presentation of the Mahabharata. It, that is the Mahabharata, is telling the tale of heroic men and women and of some who are divine. It is a whole literature in itself, containing a code of life, a philosophy of social and ethical relations, and speculative thought on human problems that is hard to rival. But above all, it has as its core the Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata belongs to a special category of Hindu literature known as the itihasas or epics. What are the functions of the epics? What function does it perform with relation to the human population, the masses of people? A noted scholar on the subject, that is Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, writing in the Cultural Heritage of India, succinctly captures the structure and purpose of the itihasas as follows. A proper interpretation of the itihasas and Puranas would be to regard them as works of gifted seers who avail themselves of certain ancient or recent historical and religious traditions and wove these traditions into narratives, anecdotes, episodes, and homilies. These works reflecting and reproducing certain attitudes towards life. In truth, these are a body of writings which are popular expositions of inherited truths and messages, their avowed purpose being to diffuse their purport or message amongst the masses of people. Adding to this insight into the Mahabharata, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer quotes from the statesman philosopher Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. The Mahabharata contains an illuminating account of the Indian genius, both in its nobility and greatness, and in its tragic weaknesses and insufficiencies, unquote. Giving us a focused reference to some of the towering characters of the Mahabharata, Swami Vivekananda condensed his views as follows, and I'm quoting his words. This epic, that is the Mahabharata, is the most popular one in India, and it exercises the same authority in India as Homer's poems did over the Greeks. The internal conflicts between righteousness and filial affection in the minds of the God-fearing yet feeble, old, blind king Dhritarashtra, the majestic character of the grandsire Bhishma, the noble and virtuous nature of the royal Yudhishthira and the other four brothers, as mighty in valor as in devotion and loyalty, the peerless character of Krishna, unsurpassed in human wisdom, the characters of women, the stately queen Gandhari, the loving mother Kunti, the ever-devoted and all-sacrificing Draupadi, these and hundreds of other characters of the epics, of this epic, and those of the Ramayana have been the cherished heritage of the whole Hindu world for the last several hundreds of years and form the basis of their thoughts and of their moral and ethical ideals. In fact, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are the two encyclopedias of the ancient Aryan life and wisdom, portraying an ideal civilization which humanity has yet to aspire after, unquote from Swami Vivekananda. In another context, Swami Vivekananda gives us a synoptic view of Dharma and Adharma. In its contrasts are strikingly opposed to each other, and I quote this extract from Swami Vivekananda. Doing good to others is virtue or dharma. Injuring others is a sin or adharma. Strength and manliness are virtues. Dependence is a sin. Loving others is virtue. Hating others is a sin. Faith in God and in one's own self is virtue. Doubt is a sin. Knowledge of oneness is virtue. Seeing diversity and practicing dissension is a sin or adharma. Now, what is dharma? Dharma is a tantalizing term. It is a grand concept both theoretically and practically. It is perhaps the greatest civilizational heritage of the Indian subcontinent. Though originating in Hinduism, it has been followed by the religions that have their origins in India, such as Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, etc. Is Dharma equal to or equivalent to the English word ethics? Today, many of us study ethics at universities. Indeed, Dharma is ethics, but it is something more than ethics. In business ethics, the formula is to have best business practices for profitable reasons. In medical ethics, human behavior is meant to adjust itself to bring about a harmonious relationship between the medical staff and patients, keeping in mind good health and wellness outcomes of the society at large. One can even read ethics in the writings of Marx and Engels. Hence, some scholars have alluded to a communist ethics, which is meant to bring about a socialist type of adjustment concerning land, labor, and capital between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. But what is meant and the meaning or goal of Dharma? It is ethics or the correct adjustment of life that creates harmony in the individual and the society. We cannot engage in ethical activity in a world with no meaning. Dharma is therefore ethical behavior with only one view in goal in mind, that is God realization. It is not mechanical ethics, but a deliberate attempt to practice good as a means to achieve the goal, that is God realization. Dharma practiced in isolation of God realization is like a great tree without any fruits. The ultimate goal of dharmic practices is God realization. Ethical behavior and God realization are the two defining factors of Dharma. In the words of the great philosopher statesman, who I quote again, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, writing in his book, Religion and Society. In its essence, religion is a summons to spiritual adventure. It is not theology, but actual practice and discipline. It is the only remedy for the pride of the spirit which has divorced itself from the eternal, that is from God. Dharmic conduct is also very difficult to define. People swear by Dharma, but it's difficult to agree as to what constitutes Dharma. Even a person indulging in adharma tries his best to maintain that he is following and practicing Dharma. The villain Edmund in Shakespeare's King Lear dramatizes this when he says, "Evil, be thou my good." He frankly wants adharma to parade as Dharma, a tribute paid by unrighteousness to righteousness. We shall now explore some of the complexities of Dharma in the Mahabharata. But before that, let us take a brief look at how Dharma was propagated in ancient India and during the subsequent epochs of Indian history. The genius of the Hindu civilization was not just the formulation of Dharma, but also the means to propagate it and to allow itself to adjust itself to new social conditions. To preserve, nourish, and defend its authority, and to uphold its majesty was equally a part of Dharma. Insofar as its propagation is concerned, Sister Nivedita, the celebrated Irish disciple of Swami Vivekananda, who lived in India and observed Indian life, wanted the spirit of India's historical missionary zeal and endeavors to be replicated even in the present age. And let me quote the words of Sister Nivedita. "Let the missionary travel with a magic lantern." Today it's the slides. with a collection of postcards, with a map of India, and with head and heart full of geographical descriptions, ballads, stories. Let him gather together the women. Let him gather together the villagers. Let him entertain them in the garden, in the veranda, in the courtyard, besides the well, and under the village tree, with stories and songs and descriptions of India, India, India. This grand achievement of the sannyasins, or itinerant monks and philosophers, crisscrossing the length and breadth of India for millennia, teaching, living on frugal means provided by ever-willing householders, was the means to diffuse Dharma into the population at large. This monumental task, conducted with devotion and peace, went on in an unabated manner for centuries. It is one of the unrecognized glories of the Hindu civilization. I can pay no better compliment to this phenomenon than to quote one of the greatest adversaries of the Indian freedom movement, Lord Thomas Macaulay, 1800-1859, whose revealing remarks in his address to the British Parliament on the 2nd of February, 1835, reads as follows. These are the words of Lord Macaulay. I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, that is India, such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her cultural and spiritual heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. This is a statement made in the British Parliament by Lord Macaulay. Whilst these utterances are complementary to the moral ethos of India, it also cunningly exposes the high watermark of colonialism practiced by the British. As history unfolded itself, the narrative changed. The British had to quit India in 1947, and the values of the Ramayana and Mahabharata prevailed. Now, adharma itself causes fear. Adharma causes fear, uneasiness, and even insecurity. Adharma destroys people. Dharma, though working slowly and certainly, leads to fearlessness, security, and harmony. Psychologically speaking, fear is an emotion triggered by detection of imminent threat. Terror merely denotes extreme fear. In the Mahabharata, we see shades and grades of fear. The first fear is what social science and even modern psychiatry refers to as socially serviceable fear. The eminent psychiatrist, Professor David R. Hawkins, tells us in his book, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, that socially serviceable fear is an accepted and normal part of human life. He proceeds to state, and I'm quoting from his book, socially serviceable fear, its all pervasiveness is expressed in almost every area of life, from locked doors to fire alarms to health and eating habits, and the whole financial structure of society. In addition, it is a recurrent focus on the media, where it plays a major role in human affairs, especially the survival of the individual. This is what is known as socially serviceable fear. Socially serviceable fear keeps us within healthy behavior patterns in society. It anticipates and prevents social injuries and stigmas. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna invokes socially serviceable fear to prevent Arjuna from proceeding on the path of adharma. Absconding from duty, that is the war, is adharma. Consider the following social comparisons that Lord Krishna makes in order to deter Arjuna from adharma. But if you do not wage this righteous war, then forfeiting your own duty and honor, you will incur sin. Continuing, Lord Krishna further invokes this type of healthy fear by referring to the reputational risk that Arjuna may suffer from. People will ever recount your infamy. To the honored, ill fame is surely worse than death. Finally, Lord Krishna focuses on the heart of what we may call social stigma, which would act adversely on Arjuna if he persists in adharma. The great chariot warriors will see you as one fled from the war out of fear. You that were held in great esteem by them will now be lightly held. This frightens Arjuna. Fortunately, Arjuna was amenable to Lord Krishna's counsel, and through accepting these principles of socially serviceable fear, he reverses his decisions from conveniently treading the path of adharma to that of a more difficult path of dharma, which results in ultimate victory. Socially serviceable fear exposes us to disgrace, reputational breakdown, and stigma that we may encounter when we tread the path of adharma. Healthy fear keeps us on the path of dharma. Let us now look at another scene from the Mahabharata in which adharma, when practiced, leads to fear and human suffering. After Yudhishthira lost his kingdom in the game of dice, he summoned Sanjaya one afternoon to his camp and told him, "We have been banished from our kingdom. Make one last bid before King Dhritarashtra and let him see sense. Persuade him to return our kingdom, which is our rightful property." Sanjaya went to Hastinapur and communicated this message to King Dhritarashtra. After some time, Sanjaya, being quite tired physically and mentally, departed from the palace. On hearing Sanjaya tell the king that he had committed an adharmic act and that the kingdom was rightfully that of Yudhishthira, the blind king was terribly upset. Adharma causes fear. The Mahabharata says, the king's frame burnt with fear. He tried to sleep, he could not. He had killed sleep. In despair, he sent for Vidura at the dead of night. Vidura arrived quickly and soon evaluated the situation. The king told him, "I have tried to sleep. I cannot sleep. You are my only friend. You have loved me with all my faults. You must console me and make me sleep. I cannot sleep." Vidura said that these 5 kinds of people are unable to sleep. Vidura lists the 5 categories of such adharmic people as follows. Number 1, the man who lusts after the wife of another cannot sleep, adultery. 2, a thief cannot sleep. 3, a man who has lost all his wealth cannot sleep, or the one who thinks all his wealth will be lost. Number 4, an unsuccessful man cannot sleep. Number 5, a weak man oppressed by a strong man, cannot sleep. The wise Vidura then added, surely pride and greed are not the qualities to be found in you, King Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was not unused to the sarcasm in the words of Vidura. He smarted under the insight of his brother. He said, please tell me how I can sleep. Vidura smiled at him, his face portraying a blend of pity and scorn. He said, you have not been able to sleep for the last few years, my lord. For long I have been trying in vain to instill into you some dharma. You are a very sinful person. You have been responsible for the suffering of the Pandavas. How can a sinful person like you get sleep? Yudhishthira has always paid you the respect due to a father. He considers you as his father. You have always been behaving badly towards him. At this very moment, if you decide to return Yudhishthira's kingdom to him, you can sleep like an innocent child. Please listen to me. You are not wise, you are foolish. Dhritarashtra then asks Vidura, tell me, my dear brother, what are the qualities one finds in a wise man and that of a foolish person? Vidura replies, I will tell you what a wise man should be like. A man should aspire for the higher things, ideals in life. The assets of such a man are self-knowledge, self-exertion or self-effort, forbearance, and steadiness in virtue. Such a man is wise. Neither anger, nor elation, nor pride, nor false modesty, nor vanity can distract him from his purpose. His actions are always done with the thought that they should serve and benefit all. Selfish desires do not tinge his actions. Honest deeds delight him, and he loves what is good. He is unaffected either by honors or by adverse criticism. Like a lake in the course of the river Ganga, he is calm, cool, and unagitated. On the other hand, the qualities of a fool are easy to enumerate. Scripture is a closed book to him as far as he is concerned. He is vain, he is proud, and when he wants to have something, he will never hesitate to employ unfair means. He has a knack of desiring what he has no right to desire. Those that are powerful make him envious. Sin is such that one man commits a sin and many may enjoy the rewards of that crime, but in the end, sin attaches itself only to that one man. Thus, Vidura's brief advice to his brother, King Dhritarashtra, constitutes the alpha and omega of dharma and adharma. Such a synoptic view is one of the choicest assets of the otherwise lengthy Mahabharata. Even a study of this conversation will be highly beneficial to both young and old. As a brief supplement to this event, the conversation between Vidura and King Dhritarashtra, I want to allude to Shakespeare's Macbeth. When Macbeth and Lady Macbeth conspire to kill King Duncan, they carry out their heinous act at the dead of night. It is darkness all through. Duncan is stabbed to death. With accomplices like Banquo and others, Macbeth usurps the throne of Scotland and becomes king. Lady Macbeth becomes the queen. But as the play rolls on, moral order collapses. Values perish and evil prevails. Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth become tragic figures. Similar characters also appear in Hamlet, Othello, and King Lear. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, who is now the queen, experiences abnormal states such as insanity, somnambulism, and hallucinations. Like King Dhritarashtra, Macbeth had murdered sleep. The burden of the crime of killing Duncan is weighing heavily upon both of them, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. At this point, I want to invite your attention to a scene which highlights the consequences of adharma. It is a scene in a room in Macbeth's castle at Inverness, which is in Act 5 of the play. Macbeth, the doctor, Satan, and attendants are conversing with each other. They are discussing the ongoing war. Suddenly, Macbeth asks the doctor about his patient, meaning Queen Macbeth. The doctor reports that Queen Macbeth has a troubled mind that keeps her from sleep. On hearing this, Macbeth gives a significant command to the doctor in Act 5 itself. Macbeth says, "Canst thou minister to a mind diseased? Pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow, raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with some sweet oblivious antidote, cleanse the stuffed bosom of that perilous stuff which weighs upon the heart." It is impossible to put one's fingers into one's mind and pluck out a self-created sorrow and expect to get immediate relief. One must suffer the painful agitations of adharma. Even the doctor in the play, in the same scene, admits his helplessness by saying, "Therein the patient must administer to himself or herself. Evil touches the mind and sickens the body. After a short while, there is a pathetic cry in the nearby room. Satan goes out to see what has transpired. He soon returns with the news. The queen, my lord, is dead." Macbeth also suffers a tragic end in the war. The consequences of adharma is always fraught with abnormal and torturous states of mind, psychosomatic illnesses, and insecurity. Is this not a deterrent enough to abstain from adharma? The deed done today as adharma will become a cause for repentance, if not death, tomorrow. The Bhagavad Gita recognizes the non-performance of duty is the first adharma or sin. The correct performance of duty is dharma or virtue, and it is rewarded, and its reward is positive, producing happiness in the here and the hereafter. The non-performance of duty is adharma, and its consequence is dire in bringing adversity in this life and heaven barring in the hereafter. Arjuna, being confused about his duty on the Kurukshetra battlefield, tells Lord Krishna, "Better to give up duty and beg than to kill great-souled masters." This is the convenient route that he takes to come out of the war. A ruler, soldier, professional, business person, or laborer who absconds or poorly performs his duty commits ruinous behavior. The person's efficiency is lost and society is compromised. Duty as dharma constitutes the responsibility that have been allocated to a person so that he or she may act in such a way so that benefits accrue to both the person, to his home, and also to society. The meaning of duty has been carefully constructed by Swami Vivekananda in his Karma Yoga lectures. Any action that makes us go Godwards is a good action and is our duty. Any action that makes us go downwards is evil and is not our duty. From the subjective standpoint, we may see that certain acts have a tendency to exalt and ennoble us, while certain other acts have a tendency to degrade or to brutalize us. But it is not possible to make out with certainty which acts have which kind of tendency in relation to all persons. There is, however, only one idea of duty which has been universally accepted by all mankind for all ages and sects and countries, and that has been summed up in a Sanskrit aphorism, Parapoko pokara punyaya papaya parapidanam. Do not injure any being. Not injuring any being is virtue. Injuring any being is sin. The Mahabharata promotes the idea that one must raise oneself in Dharma by performing one's duty at hand. To illustrate this point, I would like to refer to an anecdote from the Mahabharata. This piece is Swami Vivekananda's transcreation of the original story which appears in the Mahabharata. A young sannyasin went to a forest. There he meditated, worshipped, and practiced yoga for a long time. After years of hard work and practice, he was one day sitting under a tree when some dry leaves fell upon his head. He looked up and saw a crow and crane fighting on the top of the tree, which made him very angry. He said, "What? Dare you throw these dry leaves upon my head?" As with these words, he angrily glanced at them. A flash of fire went out of his head. Such was the yogi's power, and burnt the birds to ashes. He was very glad, almost overjoyed at this development of power. He could burn the crow and the crane by a mere look. After a time, he had to go to the town to beg his food, his bread. He went, stood at a door, and said, "Mother, give me food." A voice came from inside the house, "Wait a little, my son." The young man thought, "You wretched woman, how dare you make me wait? You do not know my power yet." Whilst he was thinking thus, a voice came again, "Boy, don't be thinking too much of yourself. Here is neither crane nor crow." He was astonished. Still he had to wait. At last the woman came, and he fell at her feet and said, "Mother, how did you know that?" She said, "My boy, I do not know your yoga or your practices. I am a common everyday woman. I made you wait because my husband is ill and I was nursing him. All my life I have struggled to do my duty. When I was unmarried, I did my duty to my parents. Now that I am married, I do my duty to my husband. That is all the yoga I practice. But by doing my duty, I have become illumined. Thus, I could read your thoughts and know what you had done in the forest. If you want to know something higher than this, go to the market of such and such a town, where you will find a Vyada, that is the lowest class of people in India, who used to live as hunters and butchers. He will tell you something that you will be very glad to learn." The sannyasin thought, "Why should I go to that town, to a Vyada, a mere butcher?" But before that, he had seen, and what he had seen, his mind opened a little, so he went. When he came near the town, he found the market there, and he saw at a distance a big fat Vyada, butcher, cutting meat with big knives, talking and bargaining with different people. The young man thought, "Lord, help me. Is this the man from whom I am going to learn? He is the incarnation of a demon, if he is anything." In the meantime, this man looked up, the butcher, and said, "Oh Swami, did that lady send you here? Take a seat until I have done my business." The sannyasin thought, "What comes to me here?" He took his seat, the man went on with his work, and after he had finished, he took his money and said to the sannyasin, "Come, sir, come to my home." On reaching home, the Vyada gave him a seat, saying, "Wait here," and went into the house. He then washed his old father and mother, fed them, and did all he could to please them, after which he came to the sannyasin and said, "Now, sir, you have come here to see me. What can I do for you?" The sannyasin asked him a few questions about soul and about God, and the Vyada gave him a lecture which forms a part of the Mahabharata called the Vyada Gita. It contains one of the highest flights of the Vedanta philosophy. When the Vyada finished his teaching, the sannyasin felt astonished. He said, "Why are you in that body with such knowledge as yours? Why are you in a Vyada's body and doing such filthy, ugly work?" "My son," replied the Vyada, "no duty is ugly, no duty is impure. My birth placed me in these circumstances and in this environment. In my boyhood, I learned the trade. I am unattached and I try to do my duty well. I try to do my duty as a householder, and I try to do all I can to make my father and mother happy. I neither know your yoga, nor have I become a sannyasin, nor did I go out of the world into the forest. Nevertheless, all that you have heard and seen has come to me through the unattached of doing of my duty, which belongs to my position." Swami Vivekananda continues, "There is a sage in India, a great yogi, one of the most wonderful men I have ever seen in my life. He is a peculiar man. He will not teach anyone. If you ask him a question, he will not answer. It is too much for him to take up the position of a teacher." That is non-egoistic. He will not do it. If you ask a question and wait for some time, in the course of conversation, he will bring up the subject, and wonderful light he will throw on it. He told me one of the secrets of work: let the ends and the means be joined together, become one. When you are doing any work, do not think of anything beyond. Do it as worship, as the highest worship, and devote your whole life to it for the time being. Thus, in the story of the Vyada and the woman, they did their duty with cheerfulness and wholeheartedness, and the result was that they had become illuminated, clearly showing that the right performance of the duties of any station of life without attachment to results leads to the highest realization of the perfection of the soul. Now, in the Mahabharata, dharmic sacrifices is rewarded, is always a theme. In this Mahabharata, the great King Shibi was famous for his dharmic conduct. Truthfulness and justice were an integral part of his daily conduct. Once the god, Dharmaraj, decided he saw a dove flying towards him with great haste. An eagle was there after the dove. To escape from the predatory eagle, the dove made a frantic effort to hide somewhere. Seeing the king on the terrace, the frightened dove took shelter on his lap. The dove said, "O king, save my life. I have come under your shelter." The king always protected the weak that sought his protection. However, this was a new experience for King Shibi. Was he obligated to protect a mere bird? Thinking for a moment, he decided that even trees, animals, and birds required protection and help as human beings do. Therefore, the king said, "Have no fear, dear dove. The eagle would not be able to touch even a feather on your body. Relax in peace and have no worries." So saying, the king quickly readied himself to face the rapidly approaching eagle. The eagle landed in front of the king and said, "O king, you have hidden my prey. Please release him so that I can appease my hunger." The righteous king saw sense in the eagle's demand. He faced a peculiar dilemma of dharma and adharma, that is, of protecting the dove now. At the same time, he should not deprive the eagle of its food. He decided to resolve the matter by offering the eagle an equal amount of meat from his kitchen. But the eagle insisted on having his prey, the dove, for his food. After some discussion, the eagle agreed to set the dove free on two conditions. The eagle said, "O king, I shall let the dove go if equal weight of flesh from your body is offered to me as food." King Shibi Rana was quite pleased with this settlement. He thought that a kilogram or two of flesh from his own body would not kill him, and that the life of the dove under his shelter would also be protected. Thus, he would be saved from the great sin of his inability to protect the weak. a leader, government, has this responsibility and obligation. The eagle then put the second condition to the king, saying, O king, if you shed a single tear from your eye, I will not accept your flesh as my food. The king's endurance, or titiksha, was tested to its ultimate limit. The king agreed and called for the knife and scale. In one side of the scale, the dove was kept. On the other side, a large chunk of the flesh cut from the king's right thigh was placed. But strange as it may seem, the pan of the scale, that is, with the dove always weighed more, and even as additional flesh of the king was added. Thus, a large portion of the king's flesh was now on the pan of the scale. Still, the weight could not be equaled. At this juncture, a teardrop appeared in the left eye of the king. The eagle immediately objected to this, saying, O king, I cannot accept this food given in distress. The tear in your eye shows that you are unhappy. So give me the dove. You shall regain your normal health. With a smile on his lips, King Shibi Rana said, Behold, O eagle, the left eye is not crying out of grief. This is a tear of joy. Now my left half of the body will also be used to honor the promise I gave you. Otherwise, if only the right side had satisfied you, the left half of my body would have become denied this opportunity of sacrifice. Therefore, my dear friend, the left eye cries out of joy. This ultimate sacrifice of King Shibi Rana is unparalleled in history. The eagle and the dove disappeared, and in their places stood the god of righteousness and justice, Dharmaraja. He was accompanied by other gods, such as Indra, Varuna, etc. The gods blessed King Shibi. He was completely healed. The deities then showered flowers and perfumes on the king and blessed him with many boons. He was granted long life, long reign, and a long stay in heaven. The king protecting Dharma was rewarded abundantly by his righteous karma, which protected him and granted him welfare and happiness. Swami Vivekananda encapsulating the spirit of the story said, Blessed are they whose bodies get destroyed in the service of others. In this Mahabharata and in the other Puranas as well, there is also the noteworthy story of King Rantideva, whose extraordinary sacrifice, born out of a divine attitude, places him as an ideal of Dharma. King Rantideva possessed enormous wealth and was very spiritual and charitable. Once he fasted for 48 days and was tested by the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Each one of these gods came in disguise as low-born individuals. Lord Vishnu brought with him a pack of hungry dogs, each demanding from Rantideva food and water. The king was fasting for 48 days, gave away his last morsel to these disguised gods. Seeing God in all, he bowed to them and served them as a king should, dharmically serve his guests. Rantideva was rewarded by those very gods at the end of the episode. His hunger, thirst, exhaustion, distress, and suffering vanished, and he enjoyed spiritual bliss. Clinging to Dharma in a life-threatening situation conferred on him the reward of being saved and being immortalized. It is perhaps this anecdote in the Mahabharata that inspired Swami Vivekananda to utter his famous statement on Dharma and patriotism. Even if a single dog in my country is without food, my whole religion will be to feed it. Now, I want to just quote or refer to one more anecdote in the Mahabharata. That is the story of Shanka, Likita, and King Sudyomana. That is, punishment helps in the maintenance of Dharma. After the completion of the 18-day Mahabharata war, Yudhishthira was in painful sorrow. He was overwhelmed by the loss of life and repeatedly expressed his desire to renounce the throne and live in the quietude and peace of the forest. Arjuna tries to console Yudhishthira and reminds him of the duties of a king. Bhagavan Vedavyasa, who was present at that time, supported Arjuna's advice, saying, "O Yudhishthira, what Arjuna says is true. A life of renunciation and retirement is not for you. Yagyas, learning, rulership, ambitions, punishing the offenders, fierceness to enemies, protection of your subjects, knowledge of the Vedas, practice of all kinds of penances or self-control, goodness of conduct, acquisition of wealth, and gifts to deserving person are the duties of a king. Of these, the prime duty is to punish the offenders." At this juncture in the sermon, Yudhishthira, in order to highlight the importance of performing one's duty, Bhagavan Vedavyasa narrated this story to Yudhishthira. There were two brothers, Shanka and Likita, who lived on the banks of the Vahuda river. They were pious souls committed to self-control and devotion. Once, Likita went to the farmhouse of Shanka. He soon noticed that his brother Shanka had gone out on some errand. Noticing a luscious crop of mangoes before him, Likita casually plucked some of the fruits and started eating them. When Shanka returned and saw what had transpired, he was enraged. He said that Likita had committed a crime by taking what did not belong to him. As such, he was ordered to proceed immediately to the king to be punished. Likita would have been happy if his brother had punished him, but Dharma demands that the ordinary citizen is not the punishing authority. Law and order would disintegrate if this was so. The punishing authority was the king or his duly appointed judicial officers. Likita, a dharmic person, went to the palace, met the king, discussed the matter, and sought punishment. The king was surprised at the whole matter, as Shanka was his brother, and said that just as the king had the power to punish, he also had the power to forgive, and hence he would be happy to forgive Likita. But Likita was adamant that he should be punished as he had deviated from the path of Dharma. The king, painfully sticking to his code of Dharma, ordered that the hands of Likita be cut off. This was the prescribed punishment for such a crime in those days. Likita, with cut hands, walked back to Shanka and begged for forgiveness. Shanka was startled by what he saw and assured Likita that he had no ill feelings towards him. He said that the king had performed his bounden duty as a law enforcement agent. He had purified himself and would reach an elevated spirit of merits or punya. He added, he said that Likita should go and take a bathe in the river Vahuda. Likita's both hands were miraculously restored in the river. Bhagavan Vyasa concludes by saying, that king, O eldest son of the Pandus, meaning Yudhishthira, became eminent by this act and obtained the highest merit. Even this, that is punishment of criminals, is the duty of rulers or Kshatriyas. Any other, O monarch, would be regarded as a wrong path for them. Do not give way to grief. Wielding the rod of chastisement, O king, is the duty of kings and not fleeing from duty. As I come towards the conclusion of this presentation, I would like to extrapolate some of the key ideas on how Dharma has to be preserved. Protecting Dharma means vitalizing and propagating dharmic values under various conditions, both favorable and adverse. In this context, I would highlight the following points. Firstly, resources, both human and financial, must be invested for the promotion of Dharma. A family, society, organization, or state that has human resources and goes on accumulating wealth, neglecting the furtherance of Dharma, commits a sin. Understand these conditions. Under these conditions, the traits of the family members become vulgar and selfish. Society deteriorates with the onslaught of corruption and crime. The country is affected by the breakdown of the law and order situation. Oliver Goldsmith, 1728, wrote in his long pastoral poem, The Deserted Village, "Ill fares the land, to hastening ills a prey, where wealth accumulates but men decay." Where wealth accumulates but men decay. In order to prevent or rectify such a situation, the Mahabharata advises us to utilize our resources actively to promote Dharma. I am quoting from the Varna Parva of the Mahabharata. The wise live their lives delighting in virtue and relying on Dharma. In various ways, they acquire wealth, which they spend on the promotion and nurturing of Dharma. They see value in Dharma only. Today, we can easily observe how far we have drifted away from this ideal. In rich families, affluent businesses, and wealthy cultural and even religious organizations, we see the accumulation of wealth contrasted with the deterioration of the character of its members. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, cyber crimes and gambling, and other addictive habits have become rampant. Our children go astray. Mental illnesses such as attention deficiency disorders and depression take hold of us, yet we practice dharmic inaction and hoarding to our detriment. Lord Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, "Those that cook and eat for themselves verily incur sin." Cooking and eating for themselves is a metaphor for selfishness and vulgar hoarding. The effort to earn and accumulate wealth should not lead to the decline of Dharma. The remedy is to actively use resources to vitalize, promote, and preserve Dharma. Secondly, value-based education. I have already pointed out that dharmic values from the Ramayana and Mahabharata have effectively been transmitted throughout India for centuries. Today, dharmic values, or what we now call value-based education, is an urgent need of our times. Value-based education is the greatest countermeasure that we have as individuals, young or old, and it is something which we have to painstakingly install as a reliable security asset in our own personalities. Value-based education is the greatest weapon that religious organizations have in their hands to combat crime, corruption, violence, and other maladies of society. Value-based education teaches us what is Dharma and the benefits of its practice. Conversely, it also alludes to adharma and its painful consequences. Value education motivates us to practice and preserve Dharma, which is both personal and collective. It helps us cope with temptations and attaches our minds to higher goals. Fear and insecurity, two monsters that devour us from within, are rendered feeble by the practice of Dharma. The veteran psychiatrist, Professor David R. Hawkins, after 50 years of practice of psychiatry, promoted this concept when he said, "Research literature indicates that religious and spiritual alignment with faith is capable of reducing overall levels of fear." Since the Vedic period, Dharma was given to us for the purpose of practice through a magical formula. Lord Krishna emphasizes this in the Bhagavad Gita. Acts of sacrifice, yajna, charity, dana, and self-control, tapas, should forever be practiced. This is what constitutes Dharma to the Vedic civilization, encapsulated in one verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Dharma means yajna, or any self-sacrificing and selfless act done for the benefit of all. It also includes dana or charity and tapas or self-control. These three practices magically add up to the definition and practice of Dharma. Clarity and conviction of these concepts must lead to practice resulting in the benefit of human well-being. Number 3 is cohesion and admonition. For people who have somewhat become weakened, like Arjuna, on the battlefield and fail to perform their dharmic duty, cohesion or admonition is a corrective measure. Lord Krishna admonishes Arjuna in the 2nd chapter of the Gita in order to rectify his downward bend of mind. Socially serviceable fear is invoked and Arjuna yields to the persuasion of Lord Krishna. A child, an errant teenager, or even an adult may have to be chastised to be kept on the path of Dharma. Chastisement is a valid means to promote and preserve Dharma. Then number 4, rehabilitation. Corrective behavior adjustments may be undertaken with beneficial outcomes. Lord Rama's correction of Sugriva's negligent behavior and Lord Krishna's management of the despondent Arjuna on the battlefield are examples of successful rehabilitation from adharma to dharma. Number 5, punishment or danda. When a nation fails to keep its citizens on the path of goodness, when law and order is compromised and injury is caused to fellow citizens and property destroyed, it then becomes necessary to take extreme measures. Penology, or the science that looks into the ill deeds or crime committed by an individual and its commensurate punishment, is very much a part of the Mahabharata. Fines were charged, jail sentences were imposed, and some criminals were exiled into the forest. The worst cases received the death sentence. Punishment was enforced by the king or judicial officers and law enforcement agents. This was a deterrent against the practice of adharma. This presentation has sought to shed light on the topic Mahabharata, adharma causes fear, insecurity, and loss. It is a facet of the general theme of these commemorative events, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. Those that protect Dharma are protected by Dharma. Once more, may I thank the officials and members of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society for giving me this privilege, coming to this temple, worshipping here, and giving an exposition through these 2 discourses on Dharma and Adharma. I am extremely happy to be here, and it is also a nostalgic memory for me to come back and meet so many of the old devotees that I have seen here yesterday and even today. My heartfelt appreciation to them on our various visits to this area, Lenasia, Lodium, etc. They played host to us, supported us, contributed towards the cause of the dharmic work that we are doing, and they have thus earned the blessings of the Lord himself. Once more, thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you, Swamiji. Just a request that we hope that you may entertain some questions if any of the audience have some. It's an opportunity not to be missed to ask Swamiji some questions.
No questions.
Before we do the final concluding aspects of the program, if I may request Kiran Bhai to lead us into a bhajan or tune or 2 for about 10 minutes.
The festival of Navaratri starts tomorrow, so we'll do one bhajan dedicated to Ma Amba Jagadamba. Amba माग्यों दे तारा चरण कमल माले मारी एक तमन्ना छे तारा चरण कमल माले अम्बा माग्यों दे तारा चरण कमल माल मारा दुखड़ा नो नहीं पा मारे तारो छे आधार मारो सांबड़ जे पोकर मारी ले जे तू संभाल मारी भक्ति स्वीकारी ले तारा चरण कमल माल अम्बा माग्यों दे तारा चरण कमल माल मारा पापोनो परिवार एना माथे छे बहु भार बहु भार बहु भार एना माथे छे बहु भार ओ जग जननी अम्बा मारी नावलडी तू तार मारो जन्म सुधारी ले तारा चरण कमल माल अम्बा माग्यों दे तारा चरण कमल माले जग कहे छे माये मां जग कहे छे माये मां बीजा वन वगड़ा नागा तारू शरण छोड़ी मां मारे बीजे जाऊं क्यों तारू शरणों छोड़ी मां मारे बीजे जाऊं क्यों भक्तो तो बाळक छे भक्तो तो बाळक छे હવે તું સંભાળી લે અંબા માગ્યું દે તારા ચરણ કમળ માલે મારી એક તમન્ના છે, તારા ચરણ કમળ માલે. અંબે અંબે માત કી. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોવિંદ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોવિંદ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. ઓમ નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોવિંદ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોવિંદ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. જય ગોવિંદ હરે. જય ગોપાલ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોવિંદ હરે. નારાયણ નારાયણ જય ગોપાલ હરે. ઓમ શાંત શાંત શાંત.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai. Before the final vote of thanks, we would like to call upon Sri Jayadabhai Shukla to come and say a few words on this most special occasion.
Namaste everyone. Lakshmi Narayan Bhagwan ki jai. I promise I won't be long, okay? But I have to honor my chairman's and younger brother's request. So, to conclude this Dharma Rakshati Rakshati and the series talk of celebrating Vedanta, if at all we will have to practice that path of Dharma Rakshati Rakshita according to our Manusmruti. And if at all we have to go to the Bhagwan, Krishna or Bhagwan, right? We have to choose the path of Arjun. And we always recite this 73rd verse of chapter 18, which says, Nashto moha smritir labdha tat prasadan maya achyuta Sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanantava. To recite this verse for me is easy, but to explain in English will be difficult, okay? So I'm going to read that translation. Bear with my pronunciation. It says, Arjuna said, O infallible one, by your grace, you must not forget that, by your grace, my illusion has been dispelled, and I am situated in knowledge. I am now free from doubts, and I shall act according to your instruction. So let us try to practice this path. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Jadabai, for your wise counsel, as always. A function such as this is not possible without the help and cooperation of many. It is just appropriate and part of our Dharma to acknowledge that, although most would not need it or want it. First and foremost, we once again acknowledge the grace of Bhagwan, through whose grace the function was made possible. Secondly, we would like to once again share our deepest appreciation and thanks to Swamiji for making the time and effort to come all the way from Durban, from Phoenix, to come and be with us and to share his wisdom. Swamiji, it is truly appreciated. We'd also like to thank the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa's Johannesburg branch, Nourish Bhai and his team, for their unstinting support to ensure that the smooth running of the function took place. Thank you very much. As always, to our Acharya, our resident priest, Sri Jadabai, for all his efforts and for the wise guidance that we get. Truly, all the functions of the Mandir, all the activities of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society, the central pillar that allows and ensures that it all takes place is Jadabai. So Jadabai, thank you. Your applause, let's applaud. To our technical team, and I was so delighted to see that some of our brothers from the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa joined our team in our time of need to give us a hand. Thank you very much for all the efforts. I just have to say something about the technical team. You know, whether it's from the Ramakrishna Center or the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir, they're the ones who do the work in the background. They're there hours before. We'll all go and enjoy our meal. They'll still be here packing up, putting away things, preparation so well in advance. So again, this in so many ways is karma yoga, silently done in the background. So particularly for that, thank you very much. Pratibha Ben, who is the wife of Sri Jadabai Shukla, has done all the sacrifice this morning of preparing the meal for us to enjoy. So I'd like to really reflect our honest and true appreciation for her selfless sacrifice. She's really, in many ways, the backbone of Jadabai, who's the backbone of the Mandir. So I'd like to acknowledge Pratibha Ben as well. To Harini Ben and Dipendra Bhai, who rendered the beautiful bhajans yesterday, and to Shri Kiran Bhai Parshottam, who's rendered the beautiful bhajans for today. Thank you very much. And lastly, to all of you for making the time and effort to be here and to be with us. Thank you. With that, we'd like to bring the program to a conclusion. There remains just two more things that we need to do as a formal part of the program. Firstly, I'd like to call upon Revered by Mystery, who's our Assistant Treasurer, to present to Swamiji our Guru Dakshina for the program. I know I said two things, but I forgot one more thing, and that is to say, please make sure that you remain behind to have join us for lunch as prasad. It will also be an opportunity for you to engage with Swamiji if the circumstances permit. Lastly, I'd like to ask Kiran Bhai to lead us into the Shanti part. So if you could all rise for that. Before Kiran Bhai does, there is an opportunity to, if Swamiji would prefer, it's up to him, for you to meet and give your obeisance to Swamiji before we proceed for lunch. So I think we should do that as well. Thank you. Namaste.
गणपति बापा मोरया मंगल मूर्ति मोरया गणपति बापा मोरया मंगल मूर्ति मोरया गणपति